We're hearing from family and friends of Mica Miller, the pastor's wife in South Carolina, whose death has been making national headlines.
This is not somebody that's ready to end their life. This is somebody that's making plans for the weekend.
Right. The unexplained death of Mica Miller, a 30-year-old woman discovered dead in April 2024, is being investigated. For 7 years, Mica was married to John Paul Miller, a pastor of Solid Rock Church located in South Carolina. The study discovered evidence of emotional, psychological, and spiritual abuse, extramarital affairs, church corruption, and shortcomings in law enforcement. Mica's attempts to leave him, along with her expressed concerns for her safety, led to the development of suspicions about her spouse, who became the primary suspect in her death. Even after the police concluded their investigation, rumors of potential cover-ups, financial misbehavior, and infidelity persist regarding the circumstances surrounding Mica's death. Conspiracy theories and disputes have also surrounded Mica's last 911 call, the veracity of the evidence pertaining to her gun purchase, and her attendance at an athletic event prior to her death. For 7 years, Mica was married to John Paul Miller, a pastor of Solid Rock Church located in South Carolina. John Paul was the church's youth pastor, and Mica had first met him when she was 14. In 2016, their affair came to light, which resulted in their divorce. At the age of 23, Mica married John Paul and took on the role of stepmother to his 5 children. As the pastor's wife, she also assumed more responsibility inside the church, managing the women's and youth ministries in addition to conducting worship and creating graphics. Mica had traveled to Kenya, where the church supported religious and educational endeavors, and he was enthusiastic about missions abroad. A fisherman named Johnny Jacobs heard a woman sobbing on the day she passed away, followed by a gunshot. He found Mica's body next to a backpack that had her mobile phone, glasses, and driver's identification. Although the investigation is now over, questions about Mica's death and its circumstances persist.
I believe that there's a very good possibility that she was lured to that area.
I do not think she took her own life.
What do you think happened?
I think that she was told to be there.
In October 2023, Mica filed for divorce. However, he later withdrew the documents following John Paul's hospitalization for mental health services. Mica claimed that her husband had stolen her keys, money, and car against her will. After her release, Mica reported her automobile as stolen to the police, but because they were still married, the car remained marital property and John Paul could not face theft charges. Mica discovered a GPS monitoring device affixed to her car and became increasingly afraid that she was being followed. She informed the authorities about this, but once more, John Paul went unpunished. Mica also accused him of sharing an explicit photo of her on Facebook, but the anonymous nature of the photo made it impossible to prove John Paul's involvement. In spite of these accusations, the pastor allegedly proceeded to defend John Paul and strike Mica, which prompted her to call the police once more. On September 6, 2021, Christopher, a wheelchair-bound buddy of John Paul's, drowned in a communal pool. There are rumors that John Paul had an affair with a church member whose husband also perished in a pool without explanation. Investigations, however, turned up no evidence of foul play in either death. Mica, John Paul's ex-wife, kept thorough journals exposing his wrongdoings, including his inappropriate behavior toward youngsters and his sexual addiction. For these reasons, Solid Rock Church dismissed him from his role as pastor. Investigators believe Mica and John Paul participated in a donation scheme, and following her death, he attempted to confiscate her belongings, which included potentially incriminating documents, prompting the filing of a police report. One piece of evidence in the ongoing investigation into her death was surveillance footage demonstrating Mica's purchase of a Sig Sauer handgun prior to her death. Her automobile also included her gas station receipt and phone search history. Despite her husband's denial, Mica had previously raised concerns for her safety and said that he had been grooming her since she was 14. A GPS tracker on her car discovered her dead for the second time, days after her last Facebook post encouraging her to leave violent relationships. John Paul called to let us know that Mica had purchased a gun, but had not shown any signs of grief after her passing. Even though the authorities are still investigating, he stated in a church release that Mica had mental health problems and that her death was self-inflicted. The way the preacher vocalized Mica's supposed mental disorder contrasted with how little he disclosed about his own background prior to marriage. The independent media's revelation about Mica's purchase of a pistol and her attendance at an athletic event before her death has sparked suspicion, casting doubt on the authenticity of the evidence. Some people are questioning the timestamps on the surveillance film, suspecting possible tampering. The pawn shop camera obscured the little cross tattoo on Mica's hand, adding to the controversy. Those concerned, including the coroner and John Paul, who has hired a lawyer to issue a cease and desist order, have reported receiving harassing messages and phone calls. The contradictions in the police report and the abrupt cremation of Mica's body without a second autopsy have intensified the suspicion of a planned and manufactured story. Although the case has been resolved, it is unclear what areas of the investigation the FBI will focus on, despite reports that they have been asked to assist. A transcript exists of what Miller told the church after April 28th, saying that his wife, Mica Miller, 30, had passed away a few hours earlier. Rather than conducting the altar call as usual, Miller requested the congregants rise for an announcement. John Paul claimed he was running on adrenaline and begged the church to pray for him and his kids. The minister continued, all knew that she wasn't well mentally and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. The couple's ring camera captures Mica leaving her house on April 27. Someone witnesses Mica entering Dick's pawn shop. 22 minutes later, the same person records Mica leaving the pawn shop with a 9mm Sig Sauer handgun, which she intended to use for suicide. Mica contacted 911 that day at 2:54 p.m. to ask if they could follow her call to the isolated spot on the river at Lumber River State Park. During the call, Mica expressed her intention to commit suicide and said she was calling to ensure her family could locate her body once the act was complete. During the call, Mica informs the dispatcher. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office discovered Mica's body, and the coroner determined that she had committed suicide. Investigators discovered the Sig Sauer gun case on Mica's car's passenger seat, along with a receipt proving she had bought the gun from the pawn shop only hours earlier. Investigators verified John Paul was at an athletic event in Charleston, South Carolina, when Mica drove to Lumber River State Park, despite persistent accusations about his participation in her murder. Since the story began to receive national exposure, more details have come to light, such as allegations made by Mica against John Paul that she disclosed to her loved ones and close friends while they were dating, as well as police reports that Mrs. Miller filed. 2 police records dated March 11th, obtained by AB 15 News in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, show that Mica Miller reported a razor blade stuck in her tire, marking the second such incident that week. The documents reveal that the responding officer informed Mica that the metal object she found inside her tire was a tire deflation device easily available for purchase online. In addition to the March 2024 police complaint, Mica's involuntary hospital stay prompted the submission of a second one in February 2024. According to a section of the 2024 report, when the complainant was discharged from the hospital. Hospital staff informed her that her husband picked up her purse and her keys. The complainant believed that her husband fraudulently initiated her involuntary hospitalization and stole her car while she was in the hospital. Friends and family claim that Mica had been storing paperwork and other evidence on her phone for potential use in the divorce. Mica informed them that she erased all the evidence from her phone after receiving it back from John. Mica's power of attorney further acknowledges that he looked through her phone during a sermon while she was in the hospital. It is important to emphasize that this was an involuntary action. On May 5th, at 3 p.m., there were 2 memorial ceremonies for Mica. One was with John Paul at Solid Rock, and the other was with her family and close friends on the beach. The family held Mica's memorial in the same spot on the beach where Mica had just received her baptism. On May 5th, Elder Charles Randall officially informed Solid Rock Ministries members of Pastor John Paul Miller's ministerial duties through an email. So, this was Mica Miller's tale. Remember to hit the bell icon, subscribe, and like this video if you enjoyed it to receive updates on our upcoming true crime tales. Please leave comments below with your ideas as well. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the upcoming video.